Hi, everybody. My name is Morgan Czepiel,
My name's Angela Quan.
and we are presenting on week 6 topic, user experience, also known as UX. Here's a brief overview of the things that we're going to cover today, looking at the introduction to user experience and different research methods, the psychology behind UX, the different heuristics and case studies, how to pivot into a career in UX, and different applications and discussion questions. So first, what is UX? When we talk about UX, we're talking about the entire experience that a user has when interacting with a product, a system, an app, technology, or service. This starts from choosing which product to buy, obtaining it, learning how to use it, incorporating it into your day-to-day life, updating it, and sustaining it. So the key question that UX asks is, why is this experience so important to users, and what makes them keep coming back? UX research also allows us to hear directly from consumers about their challenges and identify areas of improvement where the product can be improved. So UX matters for many reasons, including how it makes people feel when they're using a product. Subconsciously, we form attachments to things that we use and integrate into our day-to-day lives and routines. First, viscerally, an object's aesthetic or branding can spark emotional responses in users. And then behaviorally, a well-designed product gives us a sense of control. We expect it to respond predictably to our actions. Good UX increases the overall experience for users, and it encourages loyalty with the brand. It builds stronger reputation and can even drive company sales. So for companies, UX connects designers with real experiences of the people they're designing for, ensuring that products meet actual user needs. So UX researchers can use a variety of methods, including quantitative and qualitative methods to understand users better. Qualitative approaches include, or quantitative approaches include A/B testing and surveys, which help us see what works best for users based on numbers. While qualitative methods like interviews, observations, and user testing let designers hear directly from users and watch how they interact with products. So a combination of both types of methods gives a complete picture to create experiences that truly meet user needs. So a key component of UX is that its design revolves around iteration or the iterative process, which includes building, testing, and refining products based on feedbacks to make the user experience better. UX implementation is never just one and done. It requires a lot of time and continuous improvement. So methods like user testing, interviews, surveys, and heuristic evaluations, which we'll touch on in a second, can help uncover what's working for users and what's not working. Each iteration of the cycle gives user experience designers a chance to improve things like accessibility, inclusivity, so the product works for a wider range of users, and the result is a product that keeps improving and stays focused on the people that are using it. Psychology plays a major role in UX design. First, good design isn't just functional, it can actually create psychological happiness. UX combines design with emotions because, as noted by Don Norman in his TED Talk, products that feel pleasant are just easier to use and work better. You're in a more creative headspace when you're having a positive experience with a product, and therefore you're more likely to engage with it. Ultimately, you're getting more out of the experience. In Tony Fadell's TED Talk, he discusses the art of noticing, which includes spotting small, often invisible problems in everyday life, and how we can include those in design, not just the obvious problems. So he implores UX designers to notice the things that are often overlooked and see products through the eyes of a new customer. The goal for users should be simple: think less and use more. A complicated design can add cognitive load to users and ultimately frustrate and confuse them. Good UX makes content intuitive, simple, and easy to use. As we've learned this week, these are Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics, which guide good UX. I won't go into detail about all 10 of them, but they include things like visibility of system status, user control and freedom, consistency, and making interfaces easy to understand. Two important ones are error prevention, which is designing systems so that mistakes are less likely to happen. And second, recognition rather than recall, which makes sure that users don't have to remember everything from a previous screen and that they always have the information they need accessible to them. Following these 10 principles can help designers create experiences that ultimately reduce frustration and really meet the user's needs.
Thanks, Morgan, for an insight on user experience and how we can apply heuristics in user experience mindsets. The $300 million button article by Jared M. Spool talked about what if one small change could make a big difference. In his assistance with an online retailer, they assumed that adding a login or register form while in the process of checking out, after customers already added items to the cart, would be very beneficial to the customer's user experience, and it would promote them in shopping and being a repeat customer at their website. Yet, what Spool found was that in the usability studies, often customers did not want to create an account when they were checking out, or they did not remember their passwords, or if they had created additional accounts in the past. Um, they also assumed that the retailer would prefer to have nefarious intentions with their personal information, so they did not want to provide any further information than they had to, other than their address and their checkout information, including payment or credit card information. Users also would purchase single items from the retailer's website, so they did not want to put the hassle in creating accounts. What this did was it impacted not only first-time customers, but it also impacted repeat customers. Spool decided that the best solution would be to add the register or login option as an optional feature instead, which ultimately increased the retailer's bottom line by $300 million. Spool found that 75% of users who had requested a password ultimately never finished this checkout process. So in his studies, he found that this had reduced any user pain points along the process. What he did was, like I said, remove the register button, created a continue button, and this increased customer purchase rates by 45%. He also mentioned that $15 million in revenue per month was added after the changes. The key takeaway is that a product's design can often seem like a benefit when being tested internally. Yet, if you don't gather feedback from real-world customers, you may not understand the pain points that they go through when testing out a product that is unfamiliar to them. Customers no longer abandon the process halfway through and often would continue with becoming a repeat customer as they noticed that the company invested in user experience improvements along their process. At Yahoo, user experience research and accessibility take the forefront in their business insights. Yahoo implemented a user-first mentality organization-wide, which meant that they restructured all of their researchers into a new team, UXRA. This stands for User Research and Accessibility. What they did was that they implemented a new framework called Timely, Behavable, Actionable, and Surprising. Timely, Behavable, Actionable, and Surprising frameworks were implemented across the entire organization, and teammates on other teams were invited to usability studies so they can understand the thought process behind user experience research. At Yahoo, timely meant that studies would be completed instead of months. It would take 1 week from end to end, from gathering participants to generating results that could be applied. Believable meant that they had to adhere to scientific standards and proving that the empirical evidence can be replicated. This meant that insights should be presented in a way that is understandable for other team members and that they can also believe that they can generate the same results once more. Actionable was that when presenting their findings, they had to provide steps and insights that other stakeholders could take action on immediately. Surprising meant that the user experience researchers also had to provide information that they could not find elsewhere, and that it was also going to provide value into the research that engineers and other team members can perform. New ways that the UXRA team implemented their research into Yahoo was that they would host user understanding activities, which were once a quarter, where team members were invited outside of their current role to sit in on research and provide their feedback immediately after research concludes. They were also able to participate in something called user nights, where they can pair up with an external user member of a product or they can pair up with an external stakeholder and interact and talk to them about how they use Yahoo's products in a real world sense. They can get to understand them and see how they go through the process on their own device, which was super insightful. And furthermore, they even included accessibility as a key framework to center around in their research experience. What this meant was that tools and user profiles that may not have been normally considered previously in Yahoo's research were now taking center stage, where they included people with disabilities as part of a key subset of users to research and analyze. And this assists with over 1 billion people who use technology to gain equity in their day-to-day operations. So, how do you become a user experience researcher? That's a great question. In the book, I Want a UX Job, it talks about how many people in the UX industry do not come from a direct user experience undergraduate degree, master's degree, or PhD. Most of those are quite relatively new topics that have sprung up in higher education recently. So how do you come into user experience research? The key takeaways is that you have a lot of applicable transferable skills from your previous industry, including survey methodology, statistical analysis, having empathy and conscientiousness when you're doing your research, being a project manager, and even collaborating with your team are all great skill sets to have. In the book, I Want a UX Job, it talks about 7 key steps to take when you're looking for a job. One includes learning about the UX research job field, including what industries are impacted by UX research, what realistic income goals look like, and how much experience you need to actually break into entry-level or mid-level roles. 2, you learn about the realistic on-the-job expectations, so you can reach out to industry professionals and ask about their day-to-day operations and what frameworks they're going through. 3, find a local UX community, whether it's in person or virtually. 4, craft up your resume, which means to translate your current skill set into actionable skill sets that researchers could take notice of. 5, build up your experience and portfolio. 6, figure out how to seek available opportunities. And 7, you're going to practice your interviewing skills as there may be a challenge during your interview. Currently, in the book, entry-level UX researchers had on average about $85,000 USD salary in 2019. I did look up the Glassdoor equivalent for 2025, and now it's $89,000. Ways that you can connect with UX professionals include hanging out at company-sponsored events, attending professional conferences including UXPA, EPIC, IXDA, or Convey UX, Facebook groups including UX Researchers Association, User Researcher Collective, LinkedIn groups, which include User Experience Group, UXP International, online forums including UX User Experience or UX Research on subreddits. And you can also just reach out to UX professionals for a coffee chat or informational interview on LinkedIn. On average, many of the researchers I've talked to found that only 20% of their roles include the research portion itself, and then the remainder is the analysis work. Common skills and ways that people interested in breaking into user experience gain skills is through internships, volunteer projects, taking on more schooling as we are right now, and even online certifications from accredited and valuable providers, including Nielsen Norman Group, NNG for short, Coursera, Udemy, edX, and also just boot camps, including General Assembly. Common job boards where you can locate UX research roles include UX Job Bank, UX Jobs Board, just UX Jobs, Epic Jobs, and even LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups where you made connections previously. Some applications that you can find for UX within consumers includes any physical products, including reversible cable connectors with USB-C and Lightning cables. And in automobiles, it's the common trope between having a Tesla with a big screen versus having physical buttons, tactile buttons on your steering wheel controls. Digitally, you can find it through search engine websites that have minimal designs and a clear search bar in the center. A common one for this one would be Google's own search engine website. You can also find in streaming services where Netflix will have the skip intro button when you play a new TV show episode. In addition, the Target app is a wonderful user experience for shoppers in person where you can scan barcodes for items that may be misplaced on different shelves. All of this is to understand why consumers will choose certain brands and what makes them, again, become repeat customers. This streamlines the interaction process for the customer so it feels intuitive and familiar for them to use your product. One discussion that you can think about is how user experience research has impacted your own shopping experience in the past. Has there been a time where you wanted to purchase an item from an online retailer and you abandoned your shopping cart before finalizing the purchase? If so, what were the factors as part of your own experience that impacted you and made you abandon your cart? This could be anywhere along the lines of the shopping journey, from accessing the retailer's website to the process of checking out.
Thank you, Angela, for those insights. Another application of UX, which I find really interesting and novel, is UX in organizations. UX isn't just for consumers and customers, it can actually enhance employee experiences within organizations. In the workplace, UX can apply to both the digital and physical environment. Physically, you can think of thoughtful office layouts, promoting collaboration and mobility, or different lighting settings. Digitally, workflows and systems can be made more intuitive and easy to use to reduce errors. Overall, prioritizing UX for employees leads to more engagement, better teamwork, maybe higher satisfaction in jobs, less errors, and less stress. So essentially, good UX makes work smoother and more enjoyable for everybody, not just consumers. And then for another discussion question, based off of some of the ideas from Tony Fidel's TED Talk, but then also some ideas that came about in our research. First, we would ask you to think of something you use in your everyday life, maybe an object, an item, a system, an app. What is one detail of this design, of the item's design, that you hadn't noticed before? And how does this detail affect your experience with it? Or if you can't think of an item, you could also think of the objects that you use in your everyday environment and how you might structure or arrange them to create a positive experience for yourself, or how they enhance the satisfaction in your day-to-day routine.
Here's all the references that we had referred to in our presentation. And Morgan, I would like to say thank you for listening to our presentation this week.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend.